Okay, so the broadcast has started, and so we're going to be recording this. And I think we've got everybody on. Avni said she was going to join a little late, and looks like there she is. Hi, Avni.
Hi.
And we may have Jeff joining. He said he wanted to join, but I haven't heard from him today. So if he comes, great. If not, we can just sort of keep moving on that section of the agenda. So I think this is pretty much who we expect to have, and like I said a minute ago, we're recording this so that we can play it back later. You guys can find it on YouTube. We can use it for other training for other KoC volunteers or labs. This is our first go around at this, so I don't expect it to be all that professional, but we'll just do what we can do. All right, so what we wanted to cover here is do a quick overview of how to set up Ubermix, talk about some of the applications that are installed, and we also want to talk about the Rachel media content that's installed on the Raspberry Pi device, and then answer some specific questions that you guys might have about the setup or about your environments or your labs that you're doing this in. And I already talked about how this is it's like a regular Google Hangout. I can invite specific people, like you guys I've invited, but anybody on the internet that has the link can certainly attend and watch this live, which I don't think anyone's watching this live except for us, but they can watch it later on a playback as needed. So, and thanks for helping me out with the notes on the Google Drive. So, first off, I wanted to walk through installation steps. I think you guys have probably already tried this, but if not, this will be a pretty quick review. So once you have the computers that you acquired through the grant funding, the used computers that you guys got, you should be able to install them with the USB flash drives that we sent with JD. Should be a pretty basic install. You plug it in and you reboot. You may need to press one of these F9, F12 or something keys in order to select the boot device. And once you dive in there, looks like we're getting Blake back. Sorry, I guess we lost him. You should see a screen that looks like that. So Blake or JD, have you gotten to this point yet on any of the computers that you have?
I see JD talking, but I can't hear him.
Yeah, I think his audio is not working.
I have not.
We got a little bit of audio there for a second, but I couldn't understand what it was. You can also do the chat, JD, if that works any better. You should have a little button on the upper left of the Hangout that looks like a blue box with some lines on it. And then that'll pop open a window on the right, and you can type stuff if that works better.
I was wondering if you wanted me to tell them anything, if they're having trouble hearing you.
Oh, is that Blake?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Blake.
Hi, Blake. We can hear you clearly.
Great. I'm on the phone with JD, so I was just going to talk for him if you guys wanted.
Yeah, whatever works.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. In the meantime, should I tell him if you got to this step or? Yeah, cool. So JD is going to try to give this a shot so he can talk to you guys, but he did say he's already passed this.
Okay, and Blake, have you gotten to this point on the computers you had, or were you going to try this with a Mac?
I haven't. We're going to try this with the Mac, and when we get them. In the meantime, we can connect to a TV with an HDMI cable and look at the software that way.
Okay, is that with just with the Raspberry Pi, you mean?
Just with the Raspberry Pi, right.
Okay. So keep in mind the Raspberry Pi has completely different software on it. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, so let me just walk through this a little bit further. So you'll get to this screen. The install on the Mac, if you're going to make the attempt, I sent you those instructions on how to attempt to do a dual boot, it'll probably be a little bit different, but this is the general setup. You just hit number 1, hit enter, it takes about 5 minutes, and it's done, which is surprisingly efficient for the amount of content that's on there. Ubermix has an option that if the system becomes corrupt, somebody deletes some software or they mess up a setting or whatever, and it doesn't run anymore, or something gets hosed, you can restart, and during the booting process you'll see a little countdown that says 3, 2, 1, 0. If you hit escape during that countdown, you'll get a menu that gives you an option to restore from the original Ubermix installation. So you don't need the USB to do this. You can do it on any of the machines where everything's been installed. It basically just resets it to kind of the initial state where Ubermix was first installed. I also wanted to talk about, just in general, since these are shared systems in these computer labs, we anticipate that people that want to save their documents, whether they're a doc file or a spreadsheet or something, that you probably need to talk them through how to do it with a USB drive. So inserting the USB drive into the computer and making sure that their files are saved there, and then they can take them to another computer next time they're in the lab, or take them home, or whatever. So the next thing I wanted to do here was I'm going to switch from, actually let me come back to this language options thing here. I'm just going to move this down, and I'm going to do a demo from a system that I have here in just a second with my other account here. Passwords. Ubermix should not require any password for normal stuff. If you're ever prompted for a password, you can enter the password of password, and that should work for most stuff. Do you guys have any questions? I heard I think somebody was asking something.
No, we were just clarifying on our end, but I'm just going to mute my microphone so I can be talking and y'all won't hear all our conversation.
Okay, sweet.
We're following along.
The applications that are installed are, they should all work in English. Some will work in French. It's depending on what the application supports, and that is the default setting for Ubermix. It's going to run in French, like when you first boot it up, and a few of them will have support for Arabic also. And it's really just sort of hit and miss, and you'll figure it out once you start running some applications. There are a few apps that may not work without internet. So if you start up an app and it doesn't do anything, or it doesn't seem to work, it may be that it wants to connect to the internet. It may be that there's some configuration problem. We didn't do a full-on test of all the apps that we installed. We just sort of took the Ubermix distro, we installed a bunch of educational applications. In some cases they don't totally work 100%, but as you get started on the OS, you'll figure those out. If you need to install a new app, and this is of course in a lab where you don't have internet, you could go to your own your home computer or your laptop or whatever where you do have internet. You can download ubuntu.deb files. Like if you find something that you want to update or something that looks really cool you want to install, you can put that on a USB, and then you can install it. Take it to the lab, put it in a computer, and install it on each one of the computers.
Randy?
To that point, and you have questions, we can help with that. Avni, yes.
Yes, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just have a quick question. Are you going to follow this setup with your screen share where you're actually showing how to some of this stuff?
Yep, I'm going to do that right. In fact, right here is the spot I'm going to do.
Okay, cool. Just making sure just making sure.
So I've got another computer here that is an actual, it's running the Ubermix distro, the same one that we sent to you. And let me get this going here.
Just checking, this video will be available on YouTube maybe later, so we can see this again. Cool.
Yep. All right, you guys able to see my other screen here from my other presenter?
Yes.
All right, so this is the actual desktop. Once you boot into Ubermix, this is what you'll see. hopefully this is not too slow in terms of being responsive. The default, let's see, the first thing I want to talk about on the list was how to change the keyboard settings. So this icon up here in the upper right, you guys let me know if I'm talking ahead of the screen because sometimes it's a little bit delayed. But there's a little flag icon in the upper right of the screen that shows the installed keyboard layouts. So you have the option to switch back to English at any time. So if you're using a regular English keyboard that doesn't have Arabic or French characters on it, you can easily switch back there. The default's going to be French, Moroccan French. And now I don't exactly know what that means, but if you come to this option right here, it will actually show you what it thinks the keyboard looks like. So you may or may not have a physical keyboard in front of you that looks something like this, and this will show you where those keys are. So that's the French, Moroccan, and then there's an Arabic one here. To switch to that, and I can show that keyboard. And so that looks like. I barely speak any French, and I don't know any Arabic, so I'm probably not going to be super helpful in answering. Did that change to Arabic? Maybe not. Not sure why it's not changing to that one, but okay. I'll try to figure that out. The next thing I want to talk about was applications that are installed. We're going to kind of just run through some of those. So of course there are browsers. So right here on the, once you click the activities button at the top is where you can get to Chrome. So that's what you would use to connect to the Raspberry Pi, the Rachel content that's on the Raspberry Pi once you have that set up. Or if you do end up with internet access, that's how you can do internet, of course. There's another browser. There's Firefox on here as well. Office documents. If you go to, this is all in French out of the box, so if I'm misinterpreting something, you guys let me know. But so we have LibreOffice installed. So for example, if you want to do a document, you can use LibreOffice Writer. And that should give you, I'm not sure why it's not letting me change the keyboard right now, but there we go. So now I'm typing in Arabic, which of course I have no idea what I'm typing. And there we go, now it's working. So if I want to do French, I want to type the word français. I have different characters on the keyboard, but I did figure this out earlier. If I had a French mapped keyboard, then you can do that as well. So just changing this thing here changes the keyboard input, and in some cases changes the language of what you're able to produce in a document.
And are you guys, JD and Blake, are you guys familiar with LibreOffice?
No, but it seems like I could have figured it out.
Yeah, it's similar to Microsoft Office. It's like a comparable to Microsoft Office. So it has
Office.
similar suite of applications.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so here's a spreadsheet. It's just, it's very similar to Excel. It does formulas and so forth, but it's free software. It will save things in Excel format. Somewhere here is a save. So if you did have to exchange documents with somebody that's using Excel or Microsoft Word, LibreOffice will read and write those files as well. This is pretty alternative.
Enregistrar sus, save that, like it's that one, yeah.
There we go. So here I can say the ODS is, for example, the format for the spreadsheet in LibreOffice, but you can also save in XLSX, which is a Microsoft Excel compatible version. So you do have the option to read and write those files. There's also Impress, I think, is the equivalent of PowerPoint, if you've ever used Microsoft PowerPoint. LibreOffice Draw is sort of like Visio. It's not nearly as advanced as Visio, where you can draw diagrams and pictures and so forth. LibreOffice Math is like building formulas. I've never used it, so I don't really know much about that. All right, let's see what else was on my list. So next on my list was just to run a couple of the apps that we tend to highlight. So the first one here, if I go down under Education, there's an app called gCompris, which in French is, this is the gCompris Educational Suite. And hopefully this will work here and not too loud. So you can do some basic things like keyboard, like teaching kids how to use the keyboard, really basic stuff. So you got to hit the number 2. And the number 6, and so forth. All right, could you guys actually hear me when I was talking, or did you hear the game, or neither?
Both.
Both, all right, cool. All right, so gCompris has a whole bunch of stuff in there. Some of them are like really simple games for kids that have never touched a computer before. Some of them are really our educational things like alphabet, basic shapes, how to count to 10, different things like that. So really good stuff for little kids that have never used a computer before. Another one that is in there that I put in the list as for younger kids is KLetters, which is right here, which I think you just type it, right? So it's just learning how to do some stuff like that.
One thing about gCompris is there's a game inside that suite, Potato Head, Mr. Potato Head, and that's really about like how to use the mouse and getting dexterity with the mouse. And people, the kids love Potato Head. I don't know why, Mr. Potato. I don't know why, but they just go crazy about it.
Yeah. So inside gCompris, if I open it up again, there's like a whole bunch of stuff inside there that are different types of apps that are kind of built into gCompris. Where's Potato Head? You remember?
So I think you have to go inside. Like these are all different types of games. Try that one, the penguin.
Yeah.
It's one of the first ones. So maybe the cat. Try the cat. The first item on the left. Or
No, the cat.
the first item, the first menu item. No, that's just basic.
Keyboard and the mouse.
Yeah, I don't quite remember. It's not the penguin. Maybe the cow? No.
Observe bien le mot affiché en haut à droite. La liste de mots qui défile. Et clique sur le retour.
All right, so it's all in French, so of course I don't have any idea what they're saying, but I think if you change, well, the other thing I want to talk about is you can change the language. Let me jump to that real quick, and then we'll come back to the application list. If you wanted to change the language, you could go into the system settings, which are here, and find the language, which I just type language. That's the right place. I just search for it up here at the top. This will bring up like the control panel for the languages, and this shows you what the preferred one is going to be at the top. So this one right here shows that French is the currently installed language. If you wanted to do English, you could drag this one to the top. So you have to sort of click it and drag it up there. And then when you save it, you have to log out and log back in or just reboot, and then applications that were previously showing up in French should go back to working in English. But again, the default is when you turn the Ubermix system on, it's going to be in French. You could do Arabic first. I think you could drag that up to the top. But again, I don't think a lot of the applications are fully translated into Arabic. All right, so that was a little side note about changing the language. And that's important to note there is there's the actual language that you're seeing stuff in, versus what's the keyboard doing. So this thing up here is just for the keyboard, but that other thing that I just showed you here is for changing the languages if you actually wanted to see the application text in a certain language. All right, so games for older kids. Some of these games actually live under the education menu, so I'm going to do Tux Math is one that we do a lot. We show kids this, and as soon as kids walk in and they see this, they're hooked on this one pretty quickly, and they'll just play this for hours and hours. So you set up a game of something, I don't know, something difficult. So as the stuff falls down from the sky, the kids guess the number, right? Of course, they figure out what the answer is. So they enter that and hit enter, and it shoots it down out of the sky. And if it lands on their little igloo, then they lose points until all their igloos are gone. So kids will totally figure out how to play that, and you'll hear this Tux Math thing playing in the background all the time.
They absolutely love it. Love it.
Yeah. There's a similar one that is under education for Tux typing. So it's almost the same kind of deal, but it's keyboard instead of math. And so this is in, I think these are French words. Right, so as you type them, you kind of clear the words. If you don't clear them, then they crash down, and pretty soon you lose your guy or whatever, right? So good keyboard skills and just learning how to type stuff.
The other nice thing about Tux Type is they have lessons as well. So if you go into, and this is kind of dependent on your keyboard, but Randy, if you go back to Tux Type, show this real quick. There's like, so before they play the game, we usually have them do the lessons section. So under lesson, yeah. And just like if you, les jours de lesson, then, yeah. So if you click that, press space, yeah. So then this is like actually teaching them like how to position your hands properly, and we start off text typing that way, like about how home position is really important, and then doing a couple of these exercises before they start to play the game. Because otherwise they're going to do a lot of like just typing with one finger, and the goal of this game is to teach typing properly. So you can see how the finger that you're supposed to use is highlighted.
You guys are going to become awesome typing teachers in your labs. I'm sure of it. And math teachers. All right, so another one we play a lot, or we get kids started on, is Tux Paint. Where is Tux Paint? It might be an accessory. You can't find it, you can always just go up to this top box and just type what you're looking for. Paint is, it's like Microsoft Paint, but it you know, has some shapes and things that you can just sort of, you know, you can.
One thing we like to do often here is do a quote-unquote competition and give out prizes. So we would have like a task, like draw a tree, and then you would have like, I don't know, a couple of people being judges, and then whoever draws the best tree according to the judges gets a small prize. And they, like, the kids love that too. Like, they just get excited about. They really put a lot into it. Like, there's the stamps, there's the shapes, and they really get creative. Some of them get really, really creative.
That's cool.
And I think from here you can also save your picture. I can't remember how, but somehow you can save it.
No.
Oui.
It's the Sauvegarde, I think is the one.
Do you guys know a lot of French, or you probably know more Arabic than French, right?
Letty. I know French. JD also knows some French.
Okay.
That's good.
And I guess that's one thing to consider when you set the lab up. If the applications in French is, I mean, it may be equally as easy or difficult for the kids to learn applications in English if they're not really good on French. You mean, you guys have to just sort of see what works out well for the kids there.
Randy, do we have anything to learn English in there? Program to learn English?
I don't think we have anything in here to learn English. We do have, there's an ebook reader that I put a couple books in here, but it's, I mean, they're not really going to teach you English.
Hmm.
You can practice learning, reading English with a couple of these classics, but I've looked a couple times for videos or applications that will teach basic English skills, and most of them are online sort of things. It's difficult to find one that's an offline application. All right, so in my list for the educational apps, there's a couple more in there. I have Canagram or K-Anagram, which is just an anagram game. Math War is a similar kind of thing where you're doing math problems and so forth. There's other stuff in there. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Games, there's a bunch of games. Some of the games really are just games, which be up to you guys to figure out how to run the lab. But there's lots of games in here. Some you might consider educational, but a lot of them are just for fun. But kids play like Super Tux or whatever. All right, so I'll let you guys explore those. I talked about the ebook reader, a couple books in there. If you found some additional ebooks that you wanted to load onto a system, you can certainly put those on a USB, and then you can import those into an individual system. All right, the next section was I want to talk about some of the programming tools that are installed here.
Can you say what you just said, actually, before you go on, about the ebook, adding books?
Yeah, if you find some ebooks online that you wanted to add in here, so this thing over here on the left is called, what's it called? Calibre, I think is the app name. Yeah, Calibre. And it's just an ebook reader, so you can add books here. So you insert your USB drive, it would show up here on this list of locations, and then you would just figure out how to import, right? You can import a PDF or HTML, all these different EPUB.
Cool.
Some of these come from Amazon Kindle or wherever, and there's a lot out there that you can get for free. I just grabbed a couple just to sort of get started.
Awesome. Thanks.
And then Randy, JD had a question in the group chat, using their own applications and installing those on the computers. It's about compatibility, right? So if they work with Linux or because Windows applications by default won't work on Ubermix, but if they can be, if there's a release for Linux for that application, you could probably figure out a way to get it on there.
Right. So look for the .deb file. So if you find a site that has software they offer for Windows, Mac, or Linux, you download the Linux version in a .deb. It's like short for Debian, and then that should install on a system like this. And if you find something you want to add, we could certainly help you, walk you through that. Sometimes you have to get a couple other DEB dependency files that go with it, but we can help you with that if you get to that point. All right, so I'm going to jump into programming. You guys ready for that?
Yep.
All right, so right here, there's 3 editors that are installed. They're pretty basic. Genie or Genie, I don't know how you say this, it's pretty much just a basic text editor, but it does have support for doing, I think it will recognize certain types of like XML or HTML if you're writing HTML. Save this. Yeah, so this will do syntax highlighting and so it's not a super advanced programming tool, but it's a basic editor that you could do some intro to programming in. Another one that's in here is Sublime Text. It's a pretty popular one in the Mac world. A lot of people use Sublime Text. Same thing. It should support basic HTML. It should support other coding languages. If you have something that's in JavaScript or whatever, it should do syntax highlighting and some of those basic things for you. Looks like Sublime is just in English. Doesn't do French, but. And then another one here is there's a Ninja IDE, which I've never used before, but it's a Python. So if you wanted to teach Python, this comes with some tools and an environment to do that. I don't pretend to know how this works, but if this looked like something you want to use that's already on the systems, you can figure out how to use it and then teach kids how to do some Python. All right, and then we also have some what I would call programming applications. They're not just editors, but they actually have some little features kind of built into them. So the biggest one that we like to promote is Scratch. You guys have probably seen Scratch. Hopefully, if you haven't, you can actually go to the Scratch website. It's an MIT project. It has support for tons of languages. Looks like it comes up in Arabic. At least mine does. Maybe I was messing with it, but you can change it to English and do other things. So this is like drag and drop programming. So you can tell the guy to go do stuff. And I don't exactly remember how to set this up. We did this with Jake Tonkel out at his site in Jama. He was having a great time building some little things out there. How do you get this thing to run? Is it this button? Is it this one? I can't remember. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you guys figure this out, you can certainly have little classes where you teach kids the really basic stuff for how would you build.
I thought it was
like a
for
loop.
Too far, but is it
that one?
Is there a file?
Yeah.
Isn't there a
Maybe
file?
this one where you have to tell it to, you have to put a starting point on there, and then you,
Okay.
there it goes. But move 10 steps and then turn.
Maybe do turn 90 degrees instead of turn, or do some more significant.
Well, he's moving all right, but you can like make him turn and like take steps, and you can have it play sounds. There's a whole library of things you can do on the MIT website. So you can go, not in the lab necessarily if you don't have internet there, but you can go home and like download some examples or learn some lessons from how to do that on the MIT Scratch website.
My counterpart's asking if you make a program through this, do they work through Windows? Are they?
So Scratch you can download and install on Windows or Mac or Linux like we have here. Scratch also runs in a web browser if you have an internet connection. I don't know how to save it. It looks like you can probably export. Maybe you can do a save as. So yeah, maybe you can save your whole project and you can put it on a USB and move it to a Windows machine, and then you can run Scratch on there. It should work on there as well. So you would go, like I just saved it to my home directory, or maybe I put it under Scratch. I don't know where it went. Scratch project. Documents, all right. Yeah, so if I took this file and I put it on a USB and moved it to another box like a Windows or a Mac, loaded it up into the Scratch application, then it should work. You should be able to edit it on there and then bring it back in here. It should work great.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, another one. So Scratch is the kind of the coolest, most featured one, but there's a few others that we have in here. There's a thing called Turtle Art, which is very similar. It's like you just say, I want to start, and then I want to go forward, and then I want to turn right. Let's say run. So the turtle will do something. So this guy actually draws a line, so you can make programming for how you would like draw a picture. So you can get creative on making different sprites or making different things, designs that kind of got to use some math skills and what kind of angle do you want to turn. Maybe I want to turn 15 degrees. Again, I want to go left. Do that. So turtle to run. He's going to do something, right? So really basic stuff, but kids can have a lot of fun with that, learning how to do some basic. And they're not really learning how to write code. They're learning the basic building blocks for how you would logically think about building code. Another one in here is called Kojo. And there's a website for Kojo. I can't remember exactly what it does. It's in my notes I said it's based on Scala, which I think is sort of related to Java programming. There's a turtle in this one, so it's probably similar where you write some code down here and then the turtle will go do something. Yeah, so again, I don't pretend to know what this does, but there's a tool there to do stuff. Another one is Kids Ruby. So Ruby is a pretty popular programming language these days. A lot of people build web applications with Ruby on Rails. So this is a basic how to do some simple Ruby stuff. Again, there's a website if you wanted to go home and or where you have internet and look up some examples or download some PDFs. I'll give you some some information about how to set up a program with Ruby using Kids Ruby. There's an app in here called Fritzing, which is, this one may require an internet connection to do anything useful, but it's like, how would you build hardware with like a circuit board? Like you have these little circuits and you can put them on a board. This is like somebody that's getting into like hardware, building stuff with even you could build with a Raspberry Pi. I'm not saying you should use the one that we sent you to do this, but there are some basic electronic type things that are in here. I'm not sure how much you can do without having the an internet connection, but if you want to be an electronics guy, there's all kinds of cool stuff in here. And let's see, there's this Ubermix came with a thing called Google Web Designer, but from what I can tell, it's actually just for building ads. If you want to run ads on the Google network, I haven't seen much that was really useful in here for doing anything else. Maybe you can build some web pages. Not really sure what this one does, but it was installed on there by Ubermix by default, so I left it in there. All right, so that's all I've got for just sort of demo of applications. Anything else you want to see on the demo or questions about how to run Ubermix stuff?
Yeah, just to clarify, so if it asks for a password, the password is just password?
Right, yep.
And also, can LibreOffice read Microsoft Office documents?
Yes, it can. So if you had a .doc file and you inserted it like on a USB, and so you were in like this file manager and there was something called .doc, you could just double-click it and it would open up directly into LibreOffice Writer. And this supports save as. You can do a save as.
Cool.
And this will let you save right here as a docx or a doc. So this is like the old school Microsoft Word. This is their newer format as a docx.
Cool.
All right, I'm going to jump back to the discussion about, we're kind of going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about the Raspberry Pi.
Did you guys receive the Raspberry Pis from Jeff? I don't know, maybe you discussed this already, but just wondering. It's a question for JD and Blake.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get my microphone unmuted. We did receive the Raspberry Pis.
Okay, cool, good.
Yep.
All right, let me see, get my agenda back on here. All right, there we go. So we wanted to talk briefly about just general networking. So to set up a lab where the computers can access the Raspberry Pi, you've got to have some networking. We've talked a little bit about doing it with either Wi-Fi or with wired Ethernet cables. Either way, I mean, that doesn't really matter too much whether you're doing wireless or wired. But you do need to have an addressing scheme. So if you have a router that will do DHCP, which if you have any kind of Wi-Fi router or even just a basic router that would connect you to the internet, it should support DHCP, which is just an addressing scheme that when any computer is plugged into it, it will get an address automatically. In some cases, you can set up that address range. So in my little example here, I'm saying go into the configuration and give it a range of something like 11 to 100 for addresses. And then that will leave you some room to set up some static addresses like one for the Raspberry Pi. And then connect all the Ethernet cables to the hub ports. A lot of times you'll see a device that has like 4 of these ports and then there's one that goes to the internet. Since you don't have internet in these labs, then of course you won't connect anything there, but plugging the computers into here or the Raspberry Pi into any of these puts them on the network. Then option 2 is static addresses. If you don't have any router, if you just have a switch, just like a plain Linksys or D-Link kind of switch, it doesn't have any interface to set up DHCP or anything, you can do the same sort of thing. You select an IP address range that you're going to use. I mean, you just sort of plan for this, and then you manually assign those addresses to each computer in the lab. So like you would give lab computers just a different number, 11, 12, 13. Hopefully you guys have some experience doing this, or you can find somebody in the area where you're working that can help you with those things. On the, I was going to show this on the demo, but it's probably not that important, but you can go up to the upper right corner of Ubermix. There's a little networking icon up there, and you can choose that, and you can say, give it a static address, or if it's connected via DHCP, it'll just give you an address automatically, and all that stuff should work out. So here is sort of the typical layout that we would expect a lab to have, like the ones that you guys are setting up. So all the different computers that are set up for workstations have an address like this. If it's DHCP, great, you don't have to worry about the exact address, they'll just get them automatically. They may connect in through a network switch, which is again like the D-Link or Linksys kind of switch or hub. When we have done setup in the past, sometimes if you're doing a wired connection, you'll need to have shorter cables for these guys, and they connect to one of these, and then you have a longer one that sort of connects it across the room to another one that links them all together. And then the Raspberry Pi gets connected into this networking environment as well, with its IP address being separate from everybody else's. And then if you do have internet, of course that these computers can reach the internet as long as your router is configured and you have an internet connection, then these certainly could browse the internet as well. You guys anticipate any issues with doing the networking setup? You got help to do that, or what are you thinking?
My counterpart's asking if we're trying to see what it's like by using a TV. How will that be different? Or what will that be like?
So using a TV, I think what you're referring to is connecting this Raspberry Pi to a TV. I mean, that's just giving you a monitor, right? Just a way to see what this guy's doing. In practical use, you could have the Raspberry Pi hooked up to a TV and a keyboard and a mouse, and somebody actually using that as a workstation. And that's fine. It won't have the same applications that these ones have, which are Ubermix, right? It's a completely different operating system. So you could just plug the Raspberry Pi in and just have it, not connected to a monitor, and it's just sort of sitting here next to the router.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay.
JD, have your computers arrived yet?
When Hadi?
Mine have not. JD's have, I believe. Is that right, JD? He's saying yeah.
Type in the chat.
He's typing.
Sorry, what was the answer to the TV question? I missed that.
So I think the TV question is about, can the Raspberry Pi be used as a workstation, which it can. It just has different applications on it from what the regular computers with Ubermix are going to have.
But you still could conceivably have other applications work through the TV using it, connecting a mouse and keyboard?
Yeah, so the Raspberry Pi Rachel, it does have a few apps on there. I don't know exactly what they are, but it's probably not as extensive as what's going to be on the Ubermix distro.
Okay.
This is a very much a side topic, but have you guys heard of the HP NUC and UC at all?
I haven't.
Sorry, one second. The audio won't work on JD's, he's saying.
Okay.
So
the audio on the Raspberry
Pi? He's saying open up your chat because that's how he's trying to connect with you guys.
Oh, I see. Okay. So he's saying my counterpart currently has a Raspberry Pi and will be able to send y'all any questions he has later this week. We realize we need a network switch, and we're working on one. Yep. And our computers arrived, and we set up the lab today. Awesome. Did you guys install Ubermix on there, JD? Okay. That's awesome.
All right.
That's fantastic.
Hopefully it all went smoothly. If you said they're all up and installed, then it's probably good to go, right?
Cool.
Oh, hi, Javier.
Hi, Javier.
Hello.
But I was asking, Randy, I was asking about the HP NUC because it uses the Intel chip, so that potentially it's a small compute. It's about the similar form factor or similar size as the Raspberry Pi, and maybe we could install Ubermix on there and have the same content. I don't know.
We certainly could. So the people that make Rachel, they make all that content available in a couple different formats, but the Raspberry Pi is the one that they make available with, it's like a complete package. It has operating system and all the content. But it wouldn't be too difficult to sort of take the content off of there and move it to a NUC or some other device.
So just want to let you guys know, since JD and I's site are so close, my counterpart can go there. I can go with him if necessary to look at their installation, and he's already been talking on the phone with JD's counterpart,
Cool.
kind of get an idea of how it went for them.
Yeah, that'd be great to collaborate on what works well and what doesn't work.
So the computers don't have an HDMI, or sorry, the monitors don't have an HDMI port? Is that the issue? The monitor doesn't have an HDMI? Yeah, okay. So I think an adapter, it depends on what ports you have on your monitor, but you could get an adapter. Sorry, I was just commenting on JD's, I was trying to answer JD's comment that he put in the chat. Let us know if your counterpart can't figure it out and you need help.
My counterpart is just wondering, in the diagram that was above, the Raspberry functioning as the server.
Yeah.
Yeah.
يعني المعلومات في
Yeah, it can be a server as well as a workstation if you choose, but its main purpose, I mean, since you guys got the hardware purchased through your grant, and we've got the software installed for you on the USB, that's designed to go on all these workstations, all these guys over here. But the Raspberry Pi is designed to primarily be acting as a server to deliver the offline Wikipedia and the Khan Academy videos so that these computers connect through it over the local network and they get that content. You could have somebody actually sitting here at this computer and it plugged into a monitor, but like we were saying earlier, it doesn't have the same applications on it as these computers have with Ubermix. So it's a little bit less functional as a workstation, but it over the network, it will deliver content to all the computers, at the same time as needed.
Randy, I have to drop, so thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks, Avni, for coming.
Bye.
I think we're just about there. Just a couple more things I
بس
want to
ممكن
demo.
يخدمكم بي سي.
I want to talk a little bit about the physical security of the Raspberry Pi. You guys have seen them already. You already have them in hand. I don't know what would work best to make sure they don't disappear or like walk off when somebody comes in the lab and they see a cool looking little computer and they just sort of pick it up and leave. There's also the SD card that's in there that has all the operating system and all the content. It's a micro SD 128 gig card, which those are actually pretty expensive. So I'd recommend looking for ways to secure that somehow, whether the lab is locked up all the time or you have some way to lock up that actual Raspberry Pi or whatever. There is a guide here, a technical guide. I'm going to paste this in the chat just so everybody's got it as well. That has a bunch of information about setting up the Raspberry Pi. I was going to see if Jeff could talk about how to set the IP address, but he's not here, and I don't have a Raspberry Pi that's working, so I don't remember exactly how to do that, but hopefully from this link you can find some good information about how to do that setup. I'm going to do a quick demo of what is on the Raspberry Pi server. It's the Rachel media server content is actually loaded on the Raspberry Pi. There is the people that make the Rachel server, they have a web address for the Rachel server running online. So this is one running on the internet. Once yours is set up in your lab and you connect to it from a workstation, you'll get something very similar to this. I think the one that you'll get will be in French, I think is the way that Jeff set it up initially. It should show the IP address up here in the corner. So once you have to know the IP address to connect to the Raspberry Pi from another lab in another computer in the same lab. But if you get that worked out in advance with the networking setup and the static IP address, and then maybe you make a bookmark to connect from each individual workstation, or maybe you write it down and post it on the wall saying here's the address to connect to the Rachel server, then anybody can open their browser on a workstation and connect in there. So Khan Academy videos, these are a little different than what's installed on yours, but basically you can drill down into here and find videos about a variety of topics. These videos should play just fine on each workstation because they are HTML5 videos. It should not require any additional plugins or Flash or anything like that. I actually think it's organized a little bit differently in the French version that we sent you, but the same thing is true, that there's all these different videos that are available. Some of the videos are available in Arabic, some are available in French, and some are available in English. I think Jeff tried to download as many as he could fit or that he could find that was available in Arabic and French, and put those, preloaded those onto the SD card before he shipped those to you. So hopefully that you guys can find out how to use those. There's also some health guides. So if you wanted to have a community health class about, you know, clean water, or I'm not even sure what else you'd find in here, but there's lots of classes and information about how to, you know, different health things that you can learn about. That's preloaded on there. There is the Wikipedia, which, why am I not finding Wikipedia on here? You should have Wikipedia on your device as well. So I think Jeff installed an Arabic version of offline Wikipedia and a French version. There may also be an English version on there as well, but you'll have to see when you get it booted up. And there are some online tools, like there's a typing lesson. It's like you do it in your browser. So the idea is you're just trying to practice keyboard skills. If you get it wrong, it'll tell you got it wrong. So it's another educational thing that's sort of built into the Raspberry Pi. It looks like this one has Scratch, like an online version of Scratch, maybe? I'm not sure what this is. And here's the installers for Scratch also. So you can download the installer for Windows from the Raspberry Pi device, like to a USB, and then you could go home, put it on your Mac, or put it on a Windows machine. Like this one here would download, you see how that would download a .deb file, which you can install on a Linux machine. But of course the ones that you have are already installed with Scratch. Any questions about the Rachel server? There may be an option here, and again, I'm not sure if the version that you got has this, but you could add additional things here. So you can upload, or you can transfer PDFs or other files onto the Raspberry Pi, and then those become available to other computers within the lab under that section, right? So if you put it on this device in the right spot, then any of these computers could connect to it via a web browser and download that or view that content. And then the final note I have here is how do you connect from within the lab? You just use Chrome. You enter the address, so this is where you have to know what the IP address is that you set up the Raspberry Pi. And then add a bookmark so it's easier for the next person that uses that computer, and then you should be set and good to go. So that's all the discussion that I have prepared. Do you guys have any specific topics you want to go over or any questions? Yeah, I'm reading JD's question in the chat. He's wanting to know how to use Rachel on your Mac. So if you go to, so a couple answers there. If you take your Mac into the lab and you either connect it via Wi-Fi or you connect it with a network connection, a cable, you can connect straight to the same server, right? So you would go in your Mac you would connect to the same IP address. Once you're on the network, I'll get back up to this picture. So if you plugged in either to this switch or to this router, or you got on the Wi-Fi with your Mac, or this is also true for if you had a tablet, you had an iPad, you have an Android, you have a smartphone, any of these devices that are connected to this network, if they know the address, they can connect to this Rachel server and get any of that content. So that's answer number one. Answer number two is you can also go to the Rachel server that's on the internet, which is here, rachel.worldpossible.org, and you can connect to all that. But of course, you'd have to have internet to do that. So, does that answer your question, JD?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's another cool feature about the Raspberry Pi is anybody that's on this network can get to it. So if you add more computers later, as long as they can get on this network here and they type the right address for the Raspberry Pi, then they can share that content as well. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. I think we're done. So we look forward to hearing back from you how the setup goes, how it goes with the dual booting option on Mac. I've never tried that before, so that'll be cool if you guys can get that to work. And then how it goes with setting up your networking and the Raspberry Pis and all that stuff.
Thank you, Randy. That was great.
Looks like JD has one more question. Resources to develop a language component into our computer classes. I don't have any ideas on that. Like I said earlier, I've seen a number of things online where you can either pay for or you can get some free online video training for how to learn English or other languages. I have not yet found anything good that goes into an offline lab. So if we find anything, we'll send it your way so you can load it up on there. All right. Thanks, guys. Let us know how it goes. And also, I sent an email probably a week or two ago. If you guys want to join our WhatsApp group, we set up a WhatsApp group specifically to try to help you guys. So if you're in a lab and you don't have internet, but you do have your phone, you could chat us via WhatsApp, and we could try to help via WhatsApp rather than Google Hangouts since you wouldn't have internet there. So if you can just email me your cell number, I can add you to the WhatsApp group and then start firing away questions, and we'll be happy to help as best we can.
Cool. Thanks, Randy.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you
Bye.
again.
Bye.